Steve here again, and I'm not an electronics tech, but today I'm going to show you how I changed the preamp tubes on my Advance Paris A10 integrated amplifier. Yes, I started to get a little noise in the right channel of my A10 integrated amplifier, and it was sort of a staticky, crackling kind of noise in the right channel, so I figure I'm going to change the preamp tubes to see if this clears it up. Now, I'll read my disclaimer here because I don't want anybody to get hurt or blame me if you mess up your equipment. Now, they have a PDF online from Advance Paris. It just recently came out, I think. It's showing you exactly how to change the preamp tubes. And you can pause any of these slides here to see exactly, the whole thing if you want to read what they tell you there. But you just need a screwdriver and a pair of cotton gloves and some new tubes. And basically, all you're going to be doing is you're going to take the cover off first. And I think there's like, 7 screws or something like that. And we're going to speed it up here so it doesn't take forever. But I was kind of distressed that I was having a problem with my amp already because I've only had it for about 6 months. And being so new, I figured the only thing it could be wrong with it would be maybe the preamp tubes. One of the preamp tubes could be loose or bad. So rather than just play with it and wiggle them around or swap them around or whatever, I just decided while I had it open, I would go ahead and put 2 fresh JJ tubes in there. And the tube board is a separate board all by itself. It's up in the middle toward the front. You can see that silver box, that chrome box there. That's where the tubes are inside of there, where you have the viewing window out the front. And it's basically just the 2 screws here you take out on that board. And as they explain, it's these 4 connectors that have to get taken off of that board. And of course, you may notice my feminine hands. I'm a little shaky today, so I actually had my wife come in and give me an assist. She's much better at working at tiny things. I'm sort of a bullet in a china shop. And she's loosening all these connectors. The one was a little bit tough. You really can't get to it, so we ended up using a pair of needle nose pliers to get that one loose. You just have to be really careful because this stuff, it's all unplugged and everything and turned off, but there's still high voltage in there. And of course, these parts are fragile. You don't want to break anything. I certainly didn't. So that's why I let her put her hands in there. Now, there are a couple of ribbon cables that come behind this tube cage thing. And I didn't figure any way to get that where you could get that out of there without snipping these zip ties off. So we cut those off. But it's tight quarters there, and of course that ribbon cable can be kind of delicate. So really take your time and don't force anything too hard. But she's got all the connectors undone there, and those are kind of like keyed where you can't really put one back on where it doesn't belong. But take note of what you're doing. And getting it out wasn't the easiest thing. They have these little sort of like these little slide rails on either side, which they don't explain in the PDF, that shows how you take you slide that board out of there, and it's pretty tight. But eventually she got it out of there for me. And there you can see it's all out of there. Now basically it's very simple. There's not really that much to it. You just take the tubes out and put the new tubes in. I kind of wish they had designed it so it would be a little easier to do this, where you could just take the cover off the top and reach in there and change tubes, swap out tubes, because I know some people like to do that tube rolling. I'm not really into that, but I know some people are. They say they can get a better sound if they use a certain type of tube and all this. But I'm just putting in new JJ tubes. I've used those before on guitar amps, and they're fine. And I bought a match pair off Amazon, so-called match pair, but I don't think it makes that much of a difference on an application like this. Put on my cotton gloves here. I am going to hang on to these tubes. You know, you got to have a drawer with all kinds of old stuff in it. And that's going to go in that drawer. They may come in handy one day. And those tubes are pretty tight in there, so you kind of have to wiggle them. And my hands are pretty shaky. I guess I needed to have lunch, or else I'm very old now and my hands are shaking. But I got them out of there. That's the tubes that were in there. I'm not exactly sure what brand those are. And here are the ones I got from Amazon. And like you see, I'm still shaking pretty good there. That's why I had my wife do a lot of the work here, because she's much steadier. But I was able to get those in there. Make sure they're in there snug. You don't want to be too rough with these tube sockets. They can come loose from underneath if they have a bad solder. And of course, just putting it all back together, shaking hands and all. I wouldn't make a great brain surgeon. Let's just put it that way. But you know, you can't let these handicaps stop you from trying to do things. So I got the new tubes in there. They're in there good and snug. And of course, it's time to put them back in. Again, you can pause this if you want to read those instructions from the PDF. As I was pointing to there are some little guide things that card. I'm going to call it a tube card, because tube board. There's a couple of runners there that the board actually slides into to kind of guide it into the proper position in the viewing window on the front. But again, those darn ribbon cables are kind of in the way there. So again, you got to be careful with that. This is not something that you want to do unless you have to. So I would discourage any type of tube rolling. I was actually having an audio issue, so that's why I decided to give it a try. And I hadn't seen anybody on YouTube doing a video about changing the tube, so since I was doing it, I thought I'd make my attempt at it. As you can see, I'm not the best photographer, but you can get a pretty good idea of what's involved there and whether you even want to try it. They say it's easy, but it's not that easy. And of course, my wife, she's getting all the plugs plugged back into the board now that she has it lined up there. We're not quite ready to screw it back down in there yet. It's only 2 screws that holds the whole thing in there. The other 2 screws are just the part that holds the tube cage on. So she kind of got those ribbons over the top of that. They could have left a little bit more room there. So all the connectors are snapped back in now. And they all have like little spring releases on them. So she's got that all lined up there for me. And now the screws are going back in. As I say, it's just the 2 screws that hold the whole thing in there. Seemed easy on paper. When I went to do it, it wasn't that easy. All that's left now is put the cover back on. And when I got it all back together, everything seems okay. It was an intermittent problem to begin with, so I'm going to have to keep listening to it to see if it comes up again. But I think swapping the tubes out are going to really take care of that for me. I hope this was some benefit to you, whether you want to try it or not. Even with my old shaky hands, I was able to do it with the assistance of my wife. So I'm going to have a sound clip here at the end, so hopefully the YouTube copyrights won't get it, and you can hear what it sounds like. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Think about subscribing. Mm-hmm.